I love how seemingly small habits and tiny actions can surprisingly transform your life in very big ways, especially when compounded over time. So in today's video, I wanted to share 5 really underrated micro habits that I've personally incorporated into my day-to-day, which has massively helped me to be on top of my health and fitness, become less anxious and keep my mental health in check, keep my finances in order, maintain the most important relationships in my life, and just live an overall good life that I'm generally happy with. Hi guys, if you're new here, my name is Tika and I post videos on productivity and self-improvement to help you live your healthiest, wealthiest, and most fulfilling life. If you like that sort of content, do subscribe to never miss a video. One thing I wish I started doing much earlier, which has changed my life the most, is having weekly check-ins with myself. So I first got this idea from Stephen Bartlett's book, Diary of a CEO, which by the way is a really great read and probably one of my favorites from last year. In the book, he references this thing called the 1 in 60 rule. It's a term in the aviation industry whereby being off target by just 1 degree in your direction will lead to a plane missing its end destination by 1 mile for every 60 miles flown. And he's saying that we can apply this to our lives, our careers, our relationships, and our personal growth. Just a small deviation in the optimal route is amplified over time and distance. So something that feels like a small miss now can really become a big miss later on. Basically, his point is that if you want to be successful, then you need to have some sort of real-time course correction to make sure that you're on track. What I do is I have a Notion page which I update on a weekly basis, and I literally just take 10 to 15 minutes at most doing it. I do this for certain key areas of my life, and you can basically pick and choose what those are for you. So for me, that would be YouTube, my health and fitness, my relationships with other people, as well as money. And in the end, I'll write this sort of summary, which is basically where I'll reflect on all the things that I mentioned in those previous sections, and that will help me to create a game plan for the following week to help me stay on track with all those key areas. So for example, maybe I noticed that this week I ended up ordering a lot of takeout, whereas that really doesn't fit into my health and fitness goals of eating healthier, but also my money goals of not spending so much during the week. So then my action plan for the following week would be to order takeout at most maybe twice a week and just cook at home the rest of the time. My second micro habit is increasing movement throughout the day, and I don't mean going to the gym and working out more. I mean really little things like, for example, taking the stairs wherever you go instead of the escalator or elevator, or maybe walking to the grocery store that's a bit further away from you. Humans were really built for continuous movement throughout the day, and this is something that I got from this book here, which is called The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. Also another book that I would highly recommend. Harvard anthropologists have pointed out that before we figured out things like animal farming and crop cultivation, we were essentially, in today's standards, professional athletes whose livelihoods required us to be physically active. Our ancestors didn't really work out because they spent most of their waking hours doing things that we would consider today as exercise. So in Michael Easter's book, he talks about studies where they found that hunter-gatherers would walk up to maybe 25 miles in a day just looking and hunting for food. We would call that a marathon, whereas back in the day, they would call that just picking up dinner. And that's just crazy to think how sedentary we are now compared to our ancestors before. So that sort of inspired me to incorporate more movement throughout my day, and I do this in a few ways. For example, whenever I'm out in public, I'll opt to take the stairs instead of the escalator or the elevator. If I'm going out to meet some friends and the journey is quite walkable and it's during daylight hours when it's safe, then I'll do the walk, even if it is like 30 or 40 minutes. Because sometimes in KL where I live, it often takes just as long to take the public transportation than it is to walk. But at least with walking, I get the benefits of movement. I commute to work by train, and instead of going to the station that's about 5 minutes away from my place, what I like to do is go to the station that's about 30 minutes away. And by the way, if you're wondering, that actually doesn't increase my commute time whatsoever because the public transportation in KL just doesn't make sense sometimes. So because of the weird infrastructure, basically the commute time is the same, but the walking time has tripled. So on the days that I go to the office, which is about twice a week, I easily get 15k steps in a day. And just by making this tiny change, it's helped me so much with my cardiovascular health and has helped me to keep fit essentially with minimal effort. The third micro habit is time blocking. An often cited study by Dr. Gail Matthews, who by the way is a psychology professor at the Dominican University of California, shows that you're 42% more likely to achieve your goals if you write them down. Gail's sample group included both men and women from the ages of 23 to 72, and they came from all over the world and all walks of life. They were entrepreneurs, educators, healthcare professionals, lawyers, bankers, artists, you name it. She divided her participants into 2 groups, so one group wrote down their goals and the other basically didn't. And those who wrote down their goals achieved their desired outcome at a significantly higher level than those who didn't. You can of course apply this to bigger goals in your life, like maybe wanting to start a YouTube channel this year or perhaps changing your job completely. But the This is also something that you can apply to smaller day-to-day goals. So I've translated this into my life through time blocking and essentially writing down all the things that I want to get done in the day. And the way I do this is through the Morgan app. Morgan is basically a tech startup based in Zurich, Switzerland, and they actually reached out to me a few months back about their all-in-one calendar app. And when they did, I was super excited because, no joke, I have been using this app every single day since. I absolutely love it, and it's become my all-in-one go-to productivity app. So what I used to do was just to block out things that I wanted to do using Google Calendar, and then if I had to-do lists, I would use my Google Keep app. But I love Morgan because you can do all of that in one single place. And basically it removes the friction of having to switch between apps all the time. And although it's such a seemingly small feature, the thing that I love the most about Morgan is that you can basically time block not just events but also tasks as well. Whereas for Google Calendar, for example, you can only block out events. And whenever I'm done with a task, I can just tick it off straight away in my calendar, which I love. I am an affiliate with them, so if you'd like to get a 10% discount on your Morgan app, you can basically use my affiliate link that I put in the description below, or you can use the discount code Tika-10. As always, there's no pressure, so I'll love you if you use my link, and I'll love you equally as much even if you don't. The next micro habit is reading for about 30 minutes to an hour before bed every night. This helps me to calm down from the day's anxieties and stressors, and really helps me to feel a lot sleepier, which will help me to get to bed earlier as well. Sitting in my bed with a good book and chamomile tea on the side with my scented candle lighted up is honestly such a vibe. Whereas what I used to do was just scroll on my phone or be on my computer. The effects of social media are really so insidious because you think that mindless scrolling is something that is very passive and I guess like relaxing for your brain because it's almost like you're switched off. And so you might get the impression that it's resting your brain, but it's actually really activating. The internet is filled with something that scientists like to call super stimuli. And super stimuli is basically highly processed, exaggerated versions of things that we're naturally wired to enjoy from an evolutionary perspective. The most desirable components are basically cranked up all the way to maximize the amount of dopamine that you get. For example, checking social media is a lot more stimulating than having a conversation with a friend over a meal. So we basically have networks of dopamine in our brain as well as networks of calm. And both networks are basically anti-correlated. So whenever we engage in super stimuli, it actually drives us further away from calm and more towards anxiety. The final micro habit I have for you today is not checking my phone first thing in the morning. I make it a point to not touch my phone at least for the first hour of the day, except to switch off my alarm. Overall, it's made me a lot less anxious because I'm not bombarded first thing in the morning by notifications of work emails and messages from friends and things like that. And it also removes the risk completely of being sucked into social media first thing. On the note of social media, the last thing that you need first thing in the morning is to feel inadequate and to feel like your life is lacking in a very major way. And also, social media is such a massive time suck. When I used to check my phone in the mornings, I would tell myself like, yeah, it's fine, I'll scroll for like maybe 10 minutes and I'll get up and do my morning routine. But what usually ends up happening is I just get sucked into it and I end up scrolling for like 30 or even 40 minutes. Whereas within that time, I could have been done with my morning routine already. So then afterwards, I'll feel like I'll need to rush in order to get started with my day, and I'll feel like, oh man, I wasted all this time, and it's just more stress for me. Since the new year has arrived, you guys probably have some habits that you might want to take up this year. I would love to know what those are, so do share those in the comments below. And also do let me know if you start incorporating any of these micro habits that I've mentioned in the video. Okay guys, take care and see you in the next video.